Hey there, ballers. Welcome to our Monday edition of our show. I'm your host, Joe Grotto. I want to thank each and every one of you for kicking off your week with us here at Bases, Barrels, and Ball Players. Today is Monday, November 3rd. We have officially reached the end of the 2025 season and have officially entered into the offseason to prepare for the 2026 season that lies ahead. On today's show, we're going to recap what went down over the weekend on Friday and Saturday as we were treated to the conclusion of the World Series. We do have a champion as the Los Angeles Dodgers have repeated as World Series champs. We'll share our thoughts. We'll recap what went down in game 6 and 7 and give all the tidbits and some history that was made throughout this highly competitive series. Then we are going to jump into some offseason talk with opening day being under 150 days away, touching on some potential trade candidates and some noteworthy free agents to move the needle for teams. Also, we were made aware that last night, that MLB announced the Gold Glove Award winners from the American League and National League. So we will quickly share the winners and recipients of those awards too, as well, for the players around the league that flashed the best leather. We are excited to be back behind the mic. Sad that baseball season has come and gone, but now we eagerly await the horizon, the dawning of a new day, as we are now one day closer to the reporting of pitchers and catchers. I know from the way that series ended, people may want to just take a deep breath from the high stakes emotion involved in baseball, but for me, it left me wanting more. But until then, let's get to talking about our great game. Play ball. All right, there, ballers. Thank you again for kicking off your Monday with us here at Bases, Barrels, and Ball Players. We're excited to be talking ball with each and every one of you. We appreciate you, the lovely audience. Before we dive into today's show, just want to continue to keep us up to speed and reminder of where you can find us on our podcast platform. So, like I've mentioned, we do release 2 audio episodes per week on wherever you like to listen to your favorite podcasts, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify Radio, Podbean, iHeartRadio. We pop up on so many different platforms. I feel like I find a new one each day. Continue to like, download wherever you can. Listen to us. We appreciate your support. And in addition to our podcast episodes, be sure to follow along with our interactions on our social media channels and our content as well on Instagram at Bases Barrels Ball Players, on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Bases Barrels 25, and be sure to follow along our YouTube channel for our video content episodes and other baseball content that we do create in baseball destination cities everywhere. Be sure to see if you're watching this one, I'll have the yellow logo just like you can see currently behind my shoulders on today's show. And to become an official subscriber of Bases, Barrels, and Ball Players, check out our Patreon site, patreon.com/Bases, Barrels, Ball Players. For just $2 a month, you'll be entered to win monthly Bases, Barrels, and Ball Players t-shirts, MLB autograph memorabilia, future MLB tickets, and so much more as we are able to grow this platform collaboratively. All right, let's kick off the top of today's show and talk about what went down over game 6 and 7. So we'll start at 6, give our thoughts. Game 7, just as business as usual. Game 6 was this past Friday, Halloween evening. Game 6, we were met with a rematch of game 2. Yoshinobu Yamamoto going for the Dodgers, going up against Kevin Gausman. Heading into game 6, the Blue Jays led the series 3-2 and have an opportunity to close out the World Series at home in Toronto. All the scoring in this game 6 would happen in one inning in this one. Dodgers would put up a 3 spot in the third via an RBI double by Will Smith and a 2-run single by Mookie Betts. Jays would answer back in the bottom half, getting one back via an RBI single from George Springer. It's now 3-1 Dodgers after 3. From there, the Jays would get 4 more runners off Yamamoto through 6, but couldn't score anything else off of him. Yamamoto was brilliant. 6 innings pitched, 5 hits allowed, 1 run, 1 walk, 6 Ks. This game, still 3-1 in the ninth, would come with some drama off Roki Sasaki. Dodgers looking to nail this one down and force a game 7. After Alejandro Kirk got hit by a pitch and pinch ran for by Miles Straw, Addison Barger ripped a double to the left center field gap. Ball is called dead, for it did get stuck in the bottom of the wall, keeping the runner Miles Straw from scoring from first base. Second and third, Nobody out. On comes Tyler Glasnow, normally a starter, coming in to potentially earn his first career save to protect this lead. He gets Ernie Clement to hit an infield pop out on the first pitch he sees. 2 pitches later, Andres Jimenez rips a ball to Kike Hernandez in left. He makes the catch, throws behind the runner at second base, Barger, who got off a little bit too far to complete the 7-4 double play and end this game in dramatic fashion. It went Yamamoto to Robleski to Sasaki to Glasnow. Ball game over. Dodgers win 3-1 and force a game 7. So just want to shout out Yoshinobu Yamamoto was absolutely brilliant in this one once again. And he didn't go the distance, and you can't expect him, like I had mentioned in the preview podcast leading up to this game 6, you can't expect him to go 9 every single time. That's just a lot of pressure to put on one individual. I think the Blue Jays did a little bit better of a job of working his pitch count and grinding out bats a little bit more than Yamamoto, but the result was pretty similar. He goes 6 innings in this one, only allowing the 1 run in the third, and then absolutely set the tone. This was the formula that the Dodgers needed to follow, and it just seems like their offense isn't going to come to play as potently as they had hoped. So the formula in this one was to have Yamamoto go 6+, allow 2 runs or less, and they got that. And then let their bullpen, their back end, be able to piece it together. Robleski's been pretty solid from the left-hand side, and then Sasaki was named closer later on in the season. So they did get their normal horses in there. But the difference is Blue Jays caused a little nervous time in that 9th inning, and they had to go to a starter in Glasnow, and turns out it did work out for them. Mookie, he had been struggling, at least offensively. He's been great with the glove. He comes through with a 2-run single in that 3rd inning to extend their lead to 3-0. Turned out to be the winning runs. So very important for Mookie to just kind of stick with it, keep that championship mentality, and just be ready to come through in that next big moment. That's exactly what he did in that situation. On the Toronto side of things, you come in, you do have that little bit of a leeway. You're up 3 games to 2 in this game 6. Worst case scenario, you do lose and you have one more opportunity. Thankfully, it is back at home. They did have this one, it seemed like, right in front of them, and it seemed like they got a little bit too little from their offense too late. And again, Yamamoto seems to be a tough matchup for this lineup, and the way he works whole quadrant of the plates and works his pitch mix, he really had these Jays hitters. While they did make some minor adjustments, and it took them maybe a few more pitches to get for Yamamoto to get through them, but he still did. And that 9th inning was absolutely something. So, pitching was the story in this one, and then we get the late inning offense rally in that bottom of the 9th. And I know there's going to be Toronto fans that are upset that the ball that did get lodged off of Addison Barger's bat, if that ball remains in play, Miles Straw easily scores from first base. That's a 1-run game with Barger at second base. That, who knows, that last double play to end the game may not even happen because all the scenarios and situations of the game might have been dictated differently. It's all he said, she said. We'll never know. And what did happen did actually indeed occur. I do know there's always people that want to point to their speculation that there's outside influences that would push for anything to have a game 7, to have more viewership, to have more finances come pouring in for the big media brands. I will say in this situation, with a completely unbiased opinion, that ball was lodged under that wall. I do think it was good heads up and awareness by the center fielder, I believe Dean, puts his hands up right away so that you don't leave anything to judgment, where if he goes to even try to pick up the baseball and then put his hands up after, that could have led the ball to remaining in play. The umpire, again, at that situation, it is up to his discretion, and I do think they got it right here. I do think the odds of how hard he smoked that baseball, the amount of space underneath the wall and to the ground, it's crazy that ball got perfectly wedged in there. They actually did a breakdown of where Mark DeRosa of MLB Network the next day went out right to that spot, and you can see how the odds of that ball getting wedged perfectly in that spot, that situation, are so slim, but that is indeed what happened. And, Sasaki had to get pulled at that point, and Glasnow has to come in and put a Superman cape on. Second and third, nobody out. That's as tough as a situation as it gets. And I do think the Jays unfortunately got a little bit impatient in this situation where I do think Ernie Clement was trying to do a little bit too much. He was hunting for his fastball, but it got way too far in on his hands than I'm sure the location of where he wanted to get barrel to baseball, just to at least drive the ball to the outfield to at least bring in that run. So you still have, in that situation, if you got a sacrifice fly, it's one out, runners at second base, still in scoring position, one out, you're only down one. Now you have two opportunities to tie the baseball game. Instead, he chases a pitcher's pitch, hits that infield pop up, and kind of gives Glasnow an opportunity to get out of it, not allowing more than one run. And sure enough, the next batter, and this was huge too, because I do think it provided more availability for Glasnow to be able to bounce back a lot easier for Game 7, because we all know Game 7s, it's win or go home, especially the World Series. There ain't no baseball after that day. It's all hands on deck for everyone. We'll get into exactly what that means, especially from the Dodgers' perspective. But Glasnow on the third pitch he throws, he gives up a line drive off of Andres Gimenez's bat. It does go right to Kike Hernandez. And then Hernandez, with just good baseball awareness, keeps his head up, doesn't assume anything, sees that Barger gets a little bit too far off of second base and attempting to get back to second base in time before getting doubled up. Hernandez immediately releases, throws a one-hopper to Miguel Rojas at second base, who makes a nice scoop, keeps his foot on the bag, and a 7-4 double play is how this World Series ends. I don't believe that had ever happened before. So this, like I had mentioned at the top of the show, we were treated to a World Series filled with so many historic moments, and that was one right there. And it just kind of felt like in that moment that the Dodgers just captured all the momentum. Besides winning that Game 6, just the way that Game 6 concluded, you just knew Game 7 was going to be an absolute battle. Again, yeah, Dodgers win this one 3-1. They forced a Game 7. Pitching was the story of this one outside of the third inning. LA only went 4 for 31 in this one. The Jays went 8 for 33. It was just a matter of the Dodgers capitalizing in that one inning, and that was really all they did. And the Jays, though, they had more opportunities throughout the game. They just kept leaving them stranded in scoring position. They went 1 for 9 with runners in scoring position. So, even if one of more of those opportunities are cashed in, this might be a different episode today. But that's baseball, and we get to get treated to watching the maximum amount of games that the postseason has to offer in terms of the World Series length. With the Dodgers winning, tying this series up at 3 apiece, that means we are going to be in for a Saturday night Game 7, November 1st. Would there be a new Mr. November to join that exclusive club? We will see. Game 7, the best words in all sports. Winner take all hands on deck. Everyone is available out of the bullpen on both sides. Yes, even Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who pitched yesterday or the night before, I think he threw 96 pitches, would be available out of the bullpen. Dodgers would send Shohei Ohtani to start this Game 7 going up against Max Scherzer. After 2 scoreless by both starters, we would get Game 7's first runs in a big way. Bo Bichette blasted a 3-run home run to left. No doubt about it. Roger Center's rocking. Jays are up 3-0 after 3. In the 4th, LA would get one back via a sac fly from Teoscar Hernandez. In my opinion, a very important answer after the big offensive moment from the Jays the half inning before. It's now 3-1. Mad Max Scherzer was good for the Jays in this one after recording an out and allowing a single in the 5th. His day would be done. Scherzer pitched a solid 4 1/3 innings pitched, 4 hits allowed, 1 run, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts. To the 6th we go. Tommy Edman would come through with a sacrifice fly of his own. Dodgers playing situational baseball in this one and now only trail 3-2. In the bottom half of the inning, Andres Gimenez would deliver an RBI double off Tyler Glasnow. It's now 4-2 Toronto. In the 7th, Jays would turn to rookie Trey Yesavage, who would pitch a clean inning. To the 8th we go, and Yesavage still in there. He gives up a long solo home run to Max Muncy, and now the score is cut to 4-3 Jays. On to the 9th we go. Blue Jays, once again, are 3 outs away from winning the World Series. On comes their closer, Jeff Hoffman. He strikes out Kike Hernandez to kick off the inning. And then, with 1 out, in steps second baseman Miguel Rojas. So quick little backstory. Miguel Rojas was added into the lineup prior to Game 6 to shake things up when Their backs were against the wall, and they faced a 3-2 World Series deficit. Roberts just had a feeling something good would happen, but I don't think he could have even imagined this. A man who hits single-digit home runs all year delivers the biggest hit of the 2025 season. Rojas smashed a deep drive to left field, away back, and gone. A solo home run in the ninth from Miguel Rojas to tie this game at 4 and flip the World Series on its head. Dodgers couldn't score another in the ninth, giving Toronto an opportunity to walk it off in the bottom half. Blue Jays would go on to load the bases with 1 out in a 4-4 game. Winning run 90 feet away, Dalton Varsho would hit a ground ball to second base. Rojas fields slightly off balance and gets just enough on the throw to get the force out at home plate to preserve the 4-4 tie. Next batter, Ernie Clement, would fly out to center, meaning we would have some more free baseball in Game 7. Neither side would score in the 10th, which included Yoshinobu Yamamoto coming back on no day's rest to continue to put up zeros. Let's take it to the 11th. Shane Bieber now on for the Jays. After 2 outs were recorded in the inning, catcher Will Smith smashes a go-ahead solo home run to left. It's now 5-4 Dodgers with a lead here in Game 7. The Dodgers are now 3 outs away from repeating as World Series champs. Yamamoto still in there. After allowing a leadoff double, Yamamoto would get an out in the sac bunt, moving the tying run to third base with less than 2 outs. After walking Barger, in would step Alejandro Kirk with an opportunity to tie or win the game. Broken back, ground ball to short. Mookie Betts steps on second base, throws it on to Freeman at first to complete the 6-3 double play. Ball game over. The Los Angeles Dodgers are your 2025 World Series champions. Wow. Game 7. We were treated to a legendary one indeed. We had good starting pitching on both sides, although I thought Scherzer outpitched Ohtani. Ohtani was good early, but it just seemed like he couldn't figure out his command from the jump. He was doing enough to get in and out of trouble to keep the Jays in the game, but it seemed like Ohtani just was not familiar with throwing on 3 days rest. I believe that was the first time he had done it in his professional career. But Scherzer was absolutely brilliant in this one. 4 1/3 innings, only allowing the 1 run, and he left it all out there on the mound. Whether that's his last pitch he's ever thrown or not. It seems like he wants to come back in 2026. You wonder if he'll be with the Jays or another team. Time will tell there. But absolutely, he laid it all out there after a tough 2025 season. He was battling injuries, some ineffectiveness to go along with that. Scherzer really showed up in time for his club with his postseason resume, and he put up a stellar performance in Seattle and then again here in this Game 7. And the Jays, they were treated to the big moment. It sure seemed like this World Series was going to conclude with the Blue Jays being on top with the dramatics earlier with that Bo Bichette 3-run home run. It just seemed like that was their iconic moment, and they were going to bring it home from there. But it wasn't meant to be. Blue Jays, they were given some grittiness and unexpected boost. Just want to shout out George Springer. He had been battling so many injuries, it seemed like, down the stretch here. He had the hit by pitch off the knee, and then he hurt his oblique pretty badly on a swing. It's a type of injury that normally it seems like is quite difficult for hitters to have any types of success. Whatever version of that we were going to get of Springer, as long as he was good enough to play, he was going to be in there. And he produced. He got 5 hits in game between Game 6 and 7. So he was absolutely everything the Blue Jays could have hoped for, and seemed like it was going to be a sounding board for this team just having that relentless fight. But they just came up a run short here. Amazing, too. I mean, this game is really a game of inches. I mean, we're congratulating the Los Angeles Dodgers on being World Series champions. But if Isaiah Kiner-Falefa is there a couple inches ahead of the throw on that bottom of the ninth force at home plate, Blue Jays walk off there, and we're talking about had they are victorious and win by 1 run. That's how close this game was. That's how tight this series was. One of the best World Series I've seen in my lifetime for sure. But it was just want to shout out. We'll continue to just focus on the Toronto side of things. before we can move on to congratulating the world champs. Toronto fans, I know you're going through it. Tons of heartbreak. Heart goes out to you. You know, team that hadn't won the World Series since 1993. This team was absolutely about relentless pursuit from pole to pole this year. Coming into the season, it seemed like there was a lot of uncertainty. It seemed like the iteration of the Blue Jays, the baby Jays, where they were this group of sons of former big leaguers, it seems like they were coming to an end. There was rumors that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was going to get traded this year, depending on how the Blue Jays' first half went. And if they didn't get that contract extension done, this is the final year of Bo Bichette in the walk year. Didn't seem like, and then, you know, the Blue Jays coming off a 77-win season, couldn't imagine this is where their story would have ended. This chapter of Blue Jays baseball would have ended in 2025. But they got out to just such a great start. They got some good starting pitching. And they changed their overall philosophy of how they play the game. They used to be the team that would live and die on playing wall ball, trying to hit the long home run. Defense suffered. Pitching was always searching for answers, it seemed like. But this year's team had a balance of everything. And they went out there through the peaks and valleys of the season. They came from behind the first half to overtake the Yankees for first place. And then towards the back end of the second half of the season, they had a 5-game lead on the Yankees that they almost saw slip away. But they just dealt with it all the good, all the bad, and everything in between. They just had so much so what in you this year. It was a pleasure to watch. And their style of play is exhausting on their opponents. Not giving in with 2 strikes, putting the ball in play, making something happen. The way they take that extra base on the base paths. Yeah, the Toronto Blue Jays were a very unfamiliar team in terms of how they typically play. But to me, this seems like it's the start of something. I do know they are on average age, of the 4th oldest team in baseball, but it seems like they have enough of a young core to be able to regroup there and add upon it and to ensure that the Blue Jays aren't going anywhere. Now, they may be one of those teams that comes out next year and maybe struggles out of the gate, suffering from that World Series hangover where those teams having to play 170 plus games could take a toll on you. But I'm really curious to see what the Blue Jays do to build off of this and to make sure that they're not just a one-year wonder. Their stars showed up. Shout out Vladimir Guerrero Jr. had a postseason for the ages, 8 postseason home runs. So many big moments. Defensive web gems for this team all across the board. Nathan Lucas with 1 big hit after the other. Ernie Clement setting the most hits in a single postseason ever with 30. Unsung hero indeed. Absolutely inspirational stuff. And, you know, I can tell you we were firmly wrong here. Doing our World Series preview leading up to Game 1, thought the Dodgers were going to win this one in 5. Thought it was going to be another gentleman's sweep. But sorry I didn't take into account the level of intensity that Toronto can turn it up to. Just on paper, you know, it seemed like the Dodgers had a huge mismatch in starting pitchers that they would have available. Their championship DNA, they've done it before. But Toronto, they were just the pure definition of team. They did it as a team. They got contributions consistently up and down the 1 through 9 spots, giving themselves opportunity to hit with runners in scoring position, do the little things right. They really put the pressure on the Dodgers. And this team just shows absolute fight, winning those last 2 games in LA, getting off the mat after losing in heartbreaking fashion in 18 innings in Game 3. This team continued to show so what. They come back and win Games 4 and 5 in LA with an opportunity, 2 opportunities to win at home the World Series in Toronto. Can't ask to be in a much better position than that. I'm sure they're going to be kicking themselves, knowing that this could potentially be a missed opportunity. But it wasn't meant to be. But congratulations to the Toronto Blue Jays on a heck of a season, American League champions. They get through the division series, beating the Yankees. They get through the championship series, beating the Mariners. More adversity there. Taking the Dodgers, the back-to-back champs, all the way to the brink as far as they can go. Nothing to hang their hat on. Very fun team to watch, and really curious to see how the Blue Jays navigate this offseason, attempting to defend their pennant and to take that next step and win the whole thing. Again, now let's switch to the other side of the Los Angeles Dodgers. Congrats to them. They are the first back-to-back World Series champions since the 2000 Yankees. And they dealt with a little bit of adversity themselves in this World Series. Now, coming in, their path through the National League was almost a clean sheet. Swept both games in the wild card round against the Reds. Took 3 or 4 against the Phillies. Yeah, and there was a little bit of dramatics at the end of their final game, but nevertheless, I don't think they were pressured all too much. Then, they get to taking on the 1 seed Milwaukee Brewers. Swept them in 4 games. Pretty convincingly, too. So that's where we got our prediction wrong at the first World Series preview, where we thought the Dodgers would continue steamrolling. That was the most vulnerable I had seen the Dodgers look, especially in those 2 games that they lost, games 4 and 5 in LA. That speaks volumes to what kind of effort Toronto put forth in this World Series. But I do think the Dodgers showed a sense of grittiness, not being able to finding a way to win without having their A performance available. Because from start to finish, the foundation of this Dodgers run was on their starting pitching. Their 4 aces absolutely carried this team all the way up until Yoshinobu Yamamoto getting 3 wins in this World Series, pitching on back-to-back days. Absolute beast stuff. If you didn't know, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, of course, went on to win the World Series MVP. While we're talking about Yamamoto, 3-0 in this World Series, 17 2/3 innings pitched, 10 hits allowed, 2 runs, 2 walks, 15 strikeouts. Absolute dominant stuff on baseball's biggest stage. And that's the kind of type of performances and grit that they got from their starters. Even Blake Snell seemed to have a little bit of a rough World Series. There was a lot of good innings in between there, too, as well. He just got played by a couple crooked numbers in there, a couple crooked innings by the Blue Jays. It's their style of play. But the Dodgers offense never really got it going. They got different contributions from guys in the lineup. I thought Will Smith was pretty consistent. Thought Freddie Freeman got it going a little bit later on. And obviously, we saw the heroics and the historic games from Shohei Ohtani. And then Max Muncy would hit his home run here and there. But as a collective, they never really showed up as a collective. They never had that big offensive outburst that this team was looking for or needed to take the pressure off the pitching. But nevertheless, the Dodgers did just enough to stave off the Blue Jays and win this in 7. And they had some self-inflicted adversity. They started kicking the ball a little bit. Those 2 games following that 18-inning marathon, it seemed like the Dodgers, who on average age are the oldest team in baseball, they were feeling those effects in game 4 and 5. Even though they were the team that came out ahead, it seemed like they were struggling to find a consistent energy level to come out and put that series away. That's why I feel like Toronto really came out and took it to them in those 2 games in LA, and Dodgers go back to Toronto with their backs against the wall, having to win 2 games to win the World Series. To win the World Series and to defend their crown. They did it. And Yamamoto, wow. What an absolute postseason legend. A World Series legend we're never going to forget. The Dodgers needed that winning formula to have Yamamoto go 6+, allowed 2 runs, 1 run or less. He delivered. Had that complete game in game 2, and then he comes back the next day after throwing 96 pitches Saturday night. Yeah, I'll pitch the 10th inning. Yeah, I'll pitch the 11th. Closing out, wins the game. Absolute gritty stuff. He's a blast from the past. Seems like Yamamoto has a rubber arm and he can go out there and pitch every day. worth absolutely every penny of that $300 million investment that the Dodgers put in him. And now he's won back-to-back World Series, and he has pitched like the ace that they hoped and expected from him. This World Series we were treated to, filled with so much history. One of the better ones of our lifetime, maybe ever. So in this World Series, this was the first series to feature all this to happen in one. A pinch hit grand slam by Addison Barger. 2 extra inning games. We were treated to the 18-inning marathon in Game 3, and then Game 7 went 11 innings. We saw 2 extra inning home runs. Freddie Freeman hit the walk-off in Game 3, and then Will Smith hit the home run in the 11th in Game 7. A walk-off home run. Also Freddie Freeman in Game 3. A 7-4 double play to end Game 6. That Kike Hernandez to Miguel Rojas double play that we talked about that ended Game 6. Back-to-back home runs to lead off a World Series game. Davis Schneider and Vladimir Guerrero, what they did at the start of Game 5 off of Blake Snell. A complete game, which was completed by Yoshinobu Yamamoto in Game 2. And we saw the first player to record 12 strikeouts and no walks. That was Trey Savage's performance. A player reached base 9 times in a single game. That was Shohei Ohtani in Game 3. We saw a game-tying 9th-inning home run to flip the World Series on its head. Miguel Rojas in Game 7 to tie the game up at 4 before the Dodgers went on to win the World Series. Dodgers, again, they're the first back-to-back World Series champs since 2000. They win their 9th World Series championship in their franchise history. Congrats to LA. That was an exciting World Series. Sad to see it go. And now we officially close the 2025 chapter of MLB baseball. What a great season, capped off by an exciting final photo finish of the regular season with teams who are vying for that final postseason position. So many incredible postseason moments. We had a ton of do-or-die games. We had Game 7s. We had Game 5s. Everything you could have asked for. The stars rose to the occasion. Baseball is hot in the street with so much momentum heading into 2026. All right, let's switch up topics now. World Series all said and done. Let's talk about something that went down yesterday. We heard in the news that the Gold Glove Awards were announced. It was such a weird time. It was Sunday evening, so not the most polarizing time for eyes to be on in the baseball world, but nevertheless, they were announced. So let's start over in the National League, and we're just going to rattle off the winners. These guys were named the best defenders at their position for their performance during the 2025 season. Catcher, the National League catcher that won the Gold Glove was Patrick Bailey of the San Francisco Giants. At first base, Matt Olson of the Atlanta Braves. At second base, Nico Hoerner of the Chicago Cubs. At third base, the winner was Ke'Bryan Hayes. Started the year with the Pittsburgh Pirates, ended with the Cincinnati Reds. At shortstop, the St. Louis Cardinals shortstop Mason Wynn took home the hardware. And then in the outfield, Ian Happ in left field of the Chicago Cubs. In center field, they had Pete Crow Armstrong also of the Cubs. And then in right field, Fernando Tatis Jr. of the San Diego Padres. And then utility was Javier Sanoja of the Miami Marlins. And the pitching defender of the year was San Francisco Giants, Logan Webb. That rounds out the National League Gold Glove team. Congrats on your recognition for flashing some of the best leather throughout the 2025 season. Over in the American League, behind the plate, catcher Dylan Dingler of the Detroit Tigers won the award. At first base, Ty France of the Toronto Blue Jays. Second base, Marcus Semien of the Texas Rangers. At third base was Michael Garcia of the Kansas City Royals. At shortstop was Bobby Wood Jr., also of the Kansas City Royals. And then in the outfield, left field, the winner was Stephen Kwan of the Cleveland Guardians. In center field, Ceddanne Rafaela of the Boston Red Sox. And then in right field, Wilyer Abreu, also of the Boston Red Sox. And then the utility winner was Mauricio Dubon of the Houston Astros. And the winner on the mound for the best defending pitcher was left-handed pitcher Max Fried of the New York Yankees. That rounds out your Gold Glove team for both the American League and the National League. Congrats to both of those squads for flashing some nasty leather and being there to pick up your team. All right. With the World Series over and done with, it means the MLB is officially in the offseason to prepare for a new year in 2026. So we're just going to get on the tip of the iceberg here and kind of slowly introduce. We'll have more on Friday's show and beyond, but kind of give you an idea of the type of content that we're going to be pumping out for you, the lovely audience. So on today's show, we're going to wrap up with talking about 3 or 4 hot trade candidates that have been rumored. And then we're going to talk about the same thing, 3 or 4 free agents, and then some teams that may be interested in getting involved too as well. We'll talk about market value, all of that good stuff. All right. We'll start on the trade side of things. So these are candidates that have been rumored could could be on the trade block, depending on what teams may have trade partners that line up based on teams needing to improve or if they have a plethora of guys in a specific position, whatever the case may be. These are the guys that fall under this boat. So we're going to start on the mound. And be sure to check us out on our other platform where I'm your host as well. It's called A's Day. We've talked about it here before where we cover everything athletics baseball, with us being stationed out here in California. We talked about what a trade with the A's and the Reds would look like for Hunter Greene services. So if you want a little bit more detail about getting to know Hunter Greene and all of that, be sure to check us out on one of our latest episodes on that platform. You could also hear us on all of your favorite podcast platforms too as well. But yeah, Hunter Greene of the Cincinnati Reds, certainly going to be a sought-after candidate. The reason, it's not because of his ability, it's because the Cincinnati Reds do have a glaring need in terms of needing to receive more offensive production in their lineup. So they do have quite the abundance of starting pitching. I do think there's more coming in their system. And with some of the question marks surrounding Hunter Greene's availability, it does seem like he does have some injury history. There could be a willingness for the Reds to move on from Greene if the right deal comes across their table. On the year, Greene is coming off a year where he made the least amount of starts in a season due to battling injury. But when he was available, he was one of the game's best. In 19 games started, he pitched to a 7-4 win-loss record with a 2.76 ERA. In 107 and 2/3 innings pitched, he struck out 132 batters, allowed 26 walks, and pitched to a .94 whip. So, on his remaining deal, so this is what a team would get in exchange. He would have 3 years remaining on a 6-year, $53 million deal with a $21 million club option available for the 2029 season. Definitely a player of his caliber. It's a very team-friendly deal. Once you see more and more as we get into this offseason what this starting pitching free agent market is going to look like, what these guys are going to command, that's a steal for the Cincinnati Reds or wherever Greene may end up if a trade were to be carried out. Teams that would be interested, that have been rumored or I think would be good fits too as well, would be the Boston Red Sox, New York Yankees, New York Mets, the Los Angeles Dodgers, the Baltimore Orioles, and San Francisco Giants. So there's going to be even more suitors that I'm sure if Greene were officially put on the trade block, the Reds GM, his phone would be off the hook. There'd be lots of offers fielded out there with a combination of finances, prospects, major league ready bats, all of that good stuff. So we will see what if that would indeed turn into anything. Another pitcher, we're going to keep moving along here. Another trade candidate, right-handed pitcher of the Minnesota Twins, Joe Ryan, on the 2025 year. He pitched in 31 games, made 30 starts, pitched to a 13-10 win-loss record with a 3.42 ERA, and 171 innings pitched. He struck out 194 batters, allowed 39 walks, and pitched to a 1.04 whip. On his deal, he has 2 years remaining of team control, expected to earn $6 million in arbitration for the 2026 season. Even more of a steal. And Ryan, he's most likely going to go into this 2026 be still on the Twins, either as they're 1 or 2 in the rotation. It'll be either him or Pablo Lopez, another guy who could be on the move. But the Twins, they just went through a season where they traded 11 or 12 guys at the deadline, and they moved on from their manager. Now, I do know they brought in a guy in Derek Shelton, who does have managerial experience, but on a baseball operations front, the Twins are at the start of a massive rebuild. So I do think they are still in the stages of collecting as many prospects as they can, especially if it's going to be on guys where in the next 2, 3 years, they may not even be Minnesota Twins if they finish out the lifetime of their contract. Like after their contract expires, they may go on to other pastures. So you would think the Twins are in a spot that they're going to be they're going to continue to be active in the trade markets so they can get as many pieces in return so they get something out of their value as compared to nothing. I do think while Joe Ryan still has a couple years under his belt, I do think this is a great opportunity, a great year for the Twins to see what's out there. There'll be plenty of suitors for his services too as well. In fact, the Red Sox were reported at the deadline last year, literally at the last bell, that the Red Sox had completed a trade to get Ryan for his services for their postseason run. It fell through, so Ryan remained a Twin for the rest of the year. But don't be surprised if you hear Ryan's names involved in trade rumors once again, especially once the winter meetings ramp up in December. Teams interested, I would say the Red Sox again, the Mets, Cubs, Giants, Astros, Orioles. Plenty of teams would be knocking down the door for his services too as well. $6 million, that's a steal for what he's going to produce this year. Brandon Lowe, we're going to be moving along. Now we're going to talk about an offensive. We're going to move on to position player trade candidates here. We're going to talk about two of them in brief. Brandon Lowe of the Tampa Bay Rays is a very interesting candidate. So he is entering the final year of his deal. It's 1 year, and most likely it's 1 year with the club option of $11.5 million that the Rays will pick up, because this is what the Rays do. They go into the last season. They hate going to free agency with guys, so they'll either extend you or they're going to trade you. If they don't think they see a long future with you, even if you are in the prime of your career, they're gonna move on. And it seems like instead of getting nothing in this deal, now they would love to keep Lowe in house. I'm sure they love his left-handed bat. He had 31 home runs last year. In fact, on the 2025 campaign, he had 256 with 31 home runs, 83 RBIs, and a 785 OPS. So that is a lot of production from a lineup that typically doesn't normally get a ton of slug in the middle of their order. So with him and Caminero, they seem to create a positive synergy there. And you don't think the Rays are too far away from being able to and compete and be in the thick of AL postseason positioning and all of that good stuff. But that's just the Rays theme. So that's why I'm circling this as a potential trade that could go down. Now, one team in division, the Yankees, this would be a good fit for them to get a left-handed bat. Don't know if the Rays would be too interested in trading within the same division unless the offer was that great or stood out amongst the rest of suitors I do think will be involved. Do think the Astros would be interested, the Mets, the Giants, the Royals. Do think the A's would be interested in taking a flyer here too as well. And then another trade candidate, another position player, might shock you a little bit, but he was involved in some trade rumors last year when this team was out of it and then made a late season push to make the postseason unlikely. Of course, it's the Cleveland Guardians left fielder, Steven Kwan. So at one point, the Guardians were 15 and a half games out of the division. They were sellers at the deadline. They traded Bieber to Toronto. It just seemed like they were kind of resetting and punting and making plans for 2026 and beyond. But they made that late season push. One ended up winning the division before losing to the Tigers in the best of three series in the wild card round. But Kwan was rumored to be heading in a trade potentially to the Blue Jays too as well. But he ended up sticking it out with the Guardians. They didn't find a suitable trade partner. Ended the year with the Guardians, and for good measure, they did end up making the postseason. But I'm sure that the Guardians are still in that weird spot where you don't know how they'll measure up with the Tigers. And I do know there is a lot of uncertainty in the Central where the Guardians should be right in the thick of being in postseason contention. But I think they're thinking realistically in terms of big picture that they don't feel particularly close winning the AL pennant. So you wonder if the right deal comes across their table, if Kwan could be a candidate where they can get some more pieces to potentially enhance to get a couple more bats to lengthen their lineup. Teams that would be interested here would be the Dodgers, Blue Jays, Phillies, and the Padres. All right. That wraps us for trade candidates. Now let's talk about the guys that don't have anything attached to them except how many years and dollars you're willing to throw their way. We're talking about some free agents. We'll talk about the biggest fish, Kyle Tucker. He'll be entering his age 29 season for the 2026 season. On the 2025 year, he hit 266 with 22 home runs, 73 runs batted in, and an 841 OPS. Definitely a dip in production across the board for him during his 1 year with the Chicago Cubs. But to be fair, it seemed like Tucker was battling injury throughout the course of this season. And then I do think there is something that comes with getting adjusted with a new environment after the lifetime Astro was there with all his consistent success. You wonder if another year there and beyond, you would see Tucker return more to his actual form. But nevertheless, I don't think it tarnished his free agent market value too much. He's valued at potentially getting 10 years, $400 million. So that would be a $40 million per year guy, a corner outfielder. Teams that are going to be involved are going to be the Dodgers, Giants, Blue Jays, Yankees, and Astros. On a later episode, we're going to make predictions for all these. Today, we're just kind of introducing, getting your names familiar with names that you're going to hear pretty consistently in the MLB offseason news for weeks and months to come. Next free agent, big fish, Kyle Schwarber, coming off a huge season for the Phillies, played in all 162 games. He'll be entering his age 33 season for the 2026 campaign. He hit 240 with 56 home runs, 132 RBIs, and a 928 OPS. He is going to be commanding potential value of a 5-year, $160 million contract. Teams interested will be the Phillies, Reds, Cubs, and Red Sox. Bo Bichette will be entering his age 28 season for the 2026 season. On the 2025 year, he had a nice bounce back after a tough 2024. He hit 311 with 18 home runs, 94 RBIs, and an 840 OPS. His potential market value is going to be 8 years, $216 million. Some teams that will be interested, I'm sure there'll be more than this, but the Blue Jays, Padres, Cubs, and Yankees. And then Pete Alonso, the first baseman, played for the Mets this past year and for the entirety of his career, will be entering his age 31 season. He hit 272 on the year with 38 home runs, 126 RBIs, and 871 OPS. He is seeking reportedly around a 7-year deal, around $175 to $180 million. Teams interested will be the Mets, Yankees, Red Sox, and Giants. So just want to get ourselves starting to get familiarized with some big names that are going to be out there. Just as exciting as the MLB season was and came to a conclusion with a great postseason and World Series, I do think there's going to be a lot of drama surrounding this offseason with free agency and trades. So that brings us to the conclusion of another edition of Bases, Battles, and Ball Players. We appreciate each and every one of you kicking off your week with us here with our Monday edition of our show. On today's show, we recapped what went down at the tail end of this year's World Series. We recapped Game 6 and 7 as the Los Angeles Dodgers have repeated as World Series champions. They are your 2025 World Series champions. They win this series in 7 games with dramatics at the end of Game 7, a game-tying home run off the bat of Miguel Rojas before a go-ahead home run by Will Smith in the 11th. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, he comes back in on back-to-back days, earns his 3rd win of the World Series. He's your World Series MVP, and the Dodgers go back-to-back. Then we transition to a slight addition of our off-season episodes and content to slowly introducing you as the 2025 season has come to a close. We announced the Gold Glove teams from both the AL and NL that were announced yesterday, and then we wrapped up today's show discussing some potential trade candidates that have been rumored, as well as 4 big-name free agents that are going to be hot in the streets throughout the majority of our MLB offseason. We'll be back behind the mic for Friday's show. We are going to introduce a new segment. We are going to play Mock GM, and we're going to do this for a few teams throughout this offseason that we do feel need to have an active offseason. So we are going to introduce that, where we're going to talk about what this team did during the 2025 season, some key players that are going to be free agents heading into this offseason, and some areas for improvement, and some key moves that I do think they need to make to get to where they're looking to go in the 2026 season and beyond. So on Friday's show, we are going to be the mock GM for the New York Mets. We'll have a full offseason plan, so you don't want to miss that. And then we will introduce our first MLB in history segment as we transition to our full offseason focus. We are going to select a player from the 1980s. So if you want to get a taste of what that looks like, we have been doing This Player in A's History on our A's Day podcast. We have been selecting an A's player from a decade throughout their franchise history, and we've told the story of their playing career, personal story, their stats, and some fun facts too as well. We're going to be doing it from the vast scope of MLB as a whole. So stay tuned for what that looks like on Friday's show as well. We'll be sure to release who that surprise player will be on at that time. So you definitely have plenty to look forward to as we are going to stay plugged in throughout this offseason. We do know the 2025 season is come and gone. There aren't going to be any sorts of competition or games until the spring training expedition of March, and the end of March will be treated to the World Baseball Classic and the 2026 regular season. Got several weeks and months until then, so we are going to get creative and keep the excitement up around our great game, growing the great game of baseball to new heights. That's all I have for you. Appreciate each and every one of you once again kicking off your week with us. Once again, I'm your host, Joe Grado. Appreciate you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please continue to like, subscribe, download wherever you can to help us grow to where we're looking to go and be a full-time platform to increase growing the game to new heights and increasing the quality of baseball content that we release to you, the lovely audience. Have a great week, everyone. And we'll be back behind the mic on Friday. Excited to keep talking about baseball and to keep us all in tune. Play ball.